All right, so in this video, we are going to go through some sample problems. We're going to determine the exact sine and cosine values of angles of the unit circle. If you have the unit circle completed, which we did from previous lesson, we're going to use that really to make most of these problems go fairly quickly. Now, remember, if you've forgotten, x goes with cosine and y goes with sine. So I want to do two things on this first problem. Now the directions say we're going to determine the exact value for each trig ratio. First though, I want to determine the approximate value just so you can see how you can use this as a tool. So turn your calculator on and press the mode button. And we want to make sure that in this particular problem, we're in degree mode because they give us the trig function in degrees. It's the sine of 45. So I'm going to hit enter. You can either turn your calculator back off and then back on, or hit second mode to go back to the main screen. Now when we take the sine of 45 and hit enter, we're going to get, again, this is an approximate value. It's an irrational number. Just round it to 3 decimal places, 0.707. You're almost never going to write that as an answer unless they specifically ask for the approximate value. Now the exact value of the sine of 45 degrees, we can do this very quickly. We've already drawn a reference triangle for this and found it in the unit circle. Remember, sine goes with the y coordinate. So we want to look at our unit circle. We want to find 45 degrees, just right here, and we want to find the y coordinate. We see it's radical 2 over 2. So that's our exact value at 45 degrees. That's the answer because that's what they wanted. But here's the trick we can use the calculator for assistance for. We hit alpha y equals and type this problem in, radical 2 over 2. We should get that decimal 0.707, and we do. So that's an easy way to check your answer and make sure you have the unit circle filled in correctly. Use that calculator to assist you. Now you won't always have this calculator available when you're taking some of these trig tests, but if you do, you can use that as an option. Now let's go through the rest of these, just get the exact value. Number 2, cosine. Cosine is the x coordinate. Find 330 degrees on the unit circle. It's right here. We want the x coordinate, so it's radical 3 over 2. And that's it. If you have the unit circle, getting these exact values is pretty simple. Press pause, try problems 3 through 6. There's number 3 and 4. The x coordinate at 90 degrees is 0, and the y coordinate 270 degrees is -1. And then here's these last two. You'll notice a lot of these answers are repeating themselves because, quite frankly, the unit circle repeats itself. For 9 pi over 4, that one is technically not on the unit circle, so you have to recognize that 9 over 4 is the same thing as 2 and 1/4. And 2 pi is 1 full circle, so 2 and 1/4 pi is really the exact same thing as just 1/4 pi, since it repeats itself every 360 degrees. This final problem wants to know what angle is coterminal to 120 degrees, and then it wants us to determine the sine and cosine of both angles. Well, coterminal to 120 is going to be -240. Because the absolute value of those two angle measures adds up to 360 degrees. Now it wants us to determine, okay, what is the sine of 120? So let's start with -240, since -240 technically isn't on the unit circle. But if you get an negative angle measure, you're going to use the angle that it's coterminal to. So -240 would be -180 plus an additional 60 degrees. In other words, negative 240 starts and ends the same place that positive 120 degrees does. So you're going to use the same ordered pair for negative 240 and for positive 120. So if you get a negative angle measure here in a little bit, you're going to use the positive coterminal angle when you're looking at the unit circle. So let's go back at 120 degrees. You can see the x coordinate and you can see the y coordinate. So that means the cosine of both of these is going to be negative 1/2. And the sine of both of these is going to be radical 3/2. So number 8, go and pause the video, see if you can figure out the exact value of the cosine of negative 300 degrees. Use the fact that it's coterminal to a positive angle. So the cosine of negative 300 will be the exact same value as the cosine of 60. So we use the fact that 60 is on the unit circle, and we can get the answer that way. And then this last one wants us to come up with the approximate value of cosine of negative 300 degrees. So anytime they want an approximate value, we can use the calculator. Although we know if the exact value is 1/2 and the approximate value is really going to be the same thing, it's going to be 0.5. Now, we'll say this, if they give you the problem in a radian measure, they ask for the approximate value of, let's say, the cosine of pi/4. In that case, you would need to go back to mode, you would need to change it to radian mode, and then at that point, you could take the cosine of pi/4, and it would give you an approximate value.